It's a mid-ranger battle royale. Fight! This phone comparison is brought to you by you. A huge thank you to the generous folks on my Patreon who are helping to keep the lights on in the Gadget Lab. More info on those amazing supporters later in this video. Google sent over a Pixel 8a. OnePlus sent over a OnePlus 12R. Neither company is requesting any special consideration or editorial influence. I can only imagine they want us to put these two phones in a cage match of death and have them duke it out for our enjoyment. But seriously, it's an exciting combo for North America, as these two are on the higher end of the mid-ranger spectrum, and they start to feel like the flagship killer phones that are popular in other markets. Take high-performance parts, find a few build quality compromises, and sell at a lower price than more premium smartphones. Starting off with build quality, it's tough to compare directly as the phones are two significantly different sizes, but I'm generally giving the design win to the Pixel. Google significantly softened up the look and made it more playful. The color options, it's like a successful version of the iPhone 5C. The softer, rounder corners, the more vibrant colors, not mine, it came in black. I like the look of the 12R, but it still kind of annoys me that the camera housing is offset. The Pixel keeps that visor look, which on a practical note, keeps the phone from rocking on your desk. You don't get that waka waka waka. Also, as a personal preference, I just like the flatter sides and flatter screen on the Pixel. The 12R is nice. It's nicely built all around, and it is a more expensive screen assembly, but I'm just not that into curved glass. Both phones feel nicer than the slate of middle-priced devices we've gotten in the past. They're plastic, but it's a nicer plastic. The frames are well finished. And I have to give OnePlus a nod here for those extra hardware bits, like the notification switch, which is a welcome add-on to quickly control the sound of your phone, and of course the IR blaster. No matter how far we get into smart home theater equipment, it still helps having a universal remote to control different TV and stereo bits. I also think the OnePlus fingerprint sensor is a little more responsive than the Pixel's. The flip side on that, while both phones have very good haptic motors, Google's attention to detail here is kinda great. Not just distinct pulses on your fingertips, those vibrations paired with really clever sound effects. They complement each other in a fun feedback delivery system. And speaking of audio, let's take a quick listen to them speakers. Not controversial at all, one of the main wins for the Pixel is overall camera performance. The main camera sensor on the OnePlus is very good, but the macro sensor, useless. And the ultra-wide is just adequate. The 8A battles well from the main camera. That's a close fight, but the ultra-wide is an easier win for the Pixel, and the selfie is nicer and more functional, especially if you want to shoot 4K video from any of the cameras on the phone. The 12R cameras don't feel much like the OnePlus 12. The OnePlus 12 has amazing cameras all around. The 8A feels a lot closer to the more expensive Pixel 8, and you're only really going to see differences between the Pixels when you try to push the 8A in much more challenging lighting conditions. For other tech though, OnePlus battles right back with a more powerful and more power efficient processor. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is a beautiful blend of performance and battery. This chip is the true successor to the Snapdragon 865, and it's aging like fine wine. This is near laptop grade. It's ridiculous overkill for the vast majority of users, especially folks who use their phones mostly for communication and social media. But unlike other previous high-end chips, it comes with much less of a battery penalty. Keep the phone in a more managed state, and with light to moderate use, you can get to 2 days of runtime pretty easy before you need to top it off. Or you can flip on the high performance mode, rock some graphics intense games, and the experience is brutal. The Tensor 3 in the Pixel is a significant step up over the Tensor 2, especially for improving battery life, but there's no way around the outright performance of the phones. The Tensor 3 still feels a generation behind Snapdragon. Samsung is still producing the Tensor chip for Google, And we can see Samsung is struggling to keep up with Qualcomm. With casual use, I think you can turn the 8A into a 2-day phone also, but you'll probably need to manage it manually. It's really not all doom and gloom. The 8A is a punchy and powerful device. Heavier compute workloads, beefier games, it's going to deliver on all of those tasks, just not as quickly or sometimes as nice as the 12R will be able to do. One specific example of that, radio performance. Qualcomm's radio tech is better than Samsung's. I can't do scientific grade testing of cellular reception, but walking around my neighborhood and just checking here in the Gadget Lab, I regularly saw big differences in radio reception. And even through Android's own settings and measurements, sometimes as much as a 10 decibel difference, which means the Pixel radio is regularly working harder than the OnePlus radio, and that is going to eat into your battery life. And battery is the other major hardware win for the OnePlus. It has a bigger battery and much faster charging. I still don't think people in North America realize how real fast charging fundamentally changes your relationship with a phone. It's neat that the 8A has 7-watt wireless charging, and maybe you want to use it. So the phone charges so slow, you'll want to be trickle charging it every time you set it down. I'm sure that won't be terrible for your battery life. Oh wait, oh no! Phones with 65-watt and faster charging, the 12R can hit 80-watt charging. It takes minutes plugged in to get a proper sun up to sun down day of smartphone use, of my smartphone use. You really stop looking for outlets and chargers and keypads, and you only plug it in when you need to. SuperVOOC has also improved on thermal impact, and even if the phone reaches an elevated temperature, it's only going to sustain that temperature a maximum of 15 minutes. A phone charging on a keypad can reach the same or higher elevated temperatures, but then it takes hours to charge over Qi. I ran a little showdown with my buddy Ricky, the YouTube tech guy, and we compared the impacts of fast charging against wireless charging, and I've got that video linked down below. And after we did that showdown, the folks at iFixit did an even deeper dive on how wasteful and inefficient wireless charging is, how it constantly consumes power to have your pads plugged in, and their final assessment for your phone was, quote, "Our tests also suggest that your battery may be better off kicking the wireless habit," end quote. I mostly blame Apple for creating this battery anxiety market, but I'm not thrilled that we haven't seen much competition from Samsung or Google on this front. But I've certainly digressed. The software fight is closer than a lot of folks might think. I ultimately need to give the win to the Pixel. The 8A is the better communicator, and for a smaller form factor phone, I think the additional search and call screening features better fit the intended use of that audience. I know it's another anecdotal point, but the second I put my SIM in any other phone, on any other non-Pixel phone, I get a lot more garbage distractions. It's the best place to get the first look at new Google products and services, and there's a great performance overlap where you can get the less expensive Pixel running near the performance of the most expensive Pixel before we launch the next generation of Pixels. And if you're into betas, you can flash betas and developer previews really easily. Or if you just want the most streamlined and accessible version of Android, you can keep a Pixel really simple. And of course, we should not discount the extra software support you'll receive shopping the 8A. Like so many other aspects of this comparison though, the OnePlus is a better computer, and Oxygen OS leans into more advanced use better. There are so many ideas here I wish were just core parts of the Android OS. There's better conveyance for multitasking and better gestures for things like floating windows. The dock works so well on a traditional slate phone. Now, Google does this great on their tablets, but OnePlus's version is awesome when you're moving data or images between multiple apps. And these two phones are starting to show more significant differences in things like their company's AI strategies. While Google sold us the idea of the Tensor chip on AI, a lot of their newer initiatives are more server-side cloud computing. OnePlus is bringing more polish to on-device AI capabilities. Now, I've shown this in the past, talking about subject identification, cutting someone out of a photo. You can't do that on-device on a Pixel, but it's just a long press for a OnePlus. Now, OnePlus has also added their own version of an on-device magic eraser, and it's not as good as Google's magic eraser. You can't just circle something to remove it, but if you take the time to paint something out, it works really quickly. It's actually close to Microsoft's generative erase, and the results are better than I was expecting. This is kind of the perfect example of the AI fight companies are waging. So that's about where I think we should start wrapping this up. There's a general theme here we've seen before, and even though both of these phones list at the same MSRP, I probably would not earnestly recommend both devices to the exact same consumer. It should be really easy to ask a person a question or three and find the device that's a better fit for their needs. Very generally, I think this trend has played out. Google makes the better communicator and assistant companion. OnePlus makes the better computer and gaming device. For my needs, personally, I prefer the OnePlus experience, but I know so many people that would definitely prefer what the Pixel delivers, which is precisely where I need to hear from you. Down in the comments, which one would win your money? MSRP to MSRP, feature to feature, spec for spec. Are you going Team Pixel or Team OnePlus? I heartily await the hottest of hot takes down in the comments underneath this video. And while I'm doing my performance testing and comparisons, the first folks who get to check out my early data are my very generous patrons. The folks over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. My videos, editorials, reviews, none of this would be possible without their support, without their generosity. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, and they're just genuinely the coolest geeks to hang out with in the universe. If you have the means, I would greatly appreciate you checking out patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. And of course, I always appreciate people who subscribe here on YouTube and share videos from their favorite content creators across social media. That helps out so much more than you would think, as the YouTube algorithm is actively trying to crush all of these channels these days. You know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days I'm spending a bit more time on the Mastodons, a little less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and definitely not on the Twitters, and I will catch you all on the next comparison.